My father was a complicated man. He raised me alone, taught me how to read, write, and wipe when I was 13, but I just don't think he would qualify as a good person. I guess my father's story starts on January 31st, 1922, when my father, Richard Dickinson, was born 9 months early in a gas station bathroom. Because of the poor state of medicine at the time, my father spent the first 10 years of his life in a popcorn popper that had been modified to house human life. And in those early years, my father was trying to contact every otherworldly entity and eldritch being he could find in the books of dark magic my grandfather spent his life collecting and using on non-Protestants. My father never told me whether any of them accepted his offers of being an eternal sub for a chance to live his life outside of the glassy, buttery confines of his personal tomb. However, given that when he slept, everyone in a 5-mile radius heard maddening whispers from beyond the veil, I'd like to think that some poor schmuck of a god out there gave him a signing bonus for his soul.
And the nightmares he caused to others are probably why I was forbidden to sleep, and why we moved so much. About that moving, we moved a lot when I was growing up, and I mean a truly absurd amount. All I wanted for my 8th birthday was a Rock'em Sock'em robot, and all my father would give me was packing up all my things and moving to a new home in a new state 5 separate times that day. My father did not believe in fidelity of any kind, really. He signed for all of the leases under different aliases, each one less creative than the last, to the point that I saw him use one 10 years ago, and it was just go fudge yourself at AOL.com as the first and last name. Every time we would move, my father would always, in his words, check out the babe scene, despite the fact that he was a lifelong eunuch, which made my birth something of a medical anomaly, especially because we still don't know who my mother is. But this did not stop my father from pursuing the local MILFs in his area. And this, of course, led him to many fights, as he would start soliciting women in front of their husbands and children. And honestly, my father did not have the body type to succeed in these quarrels. Even though most of his diet had consisted of human growth hormone ever since his birth, he was only 4'10", 70 pounds, and had hollow bones and wispy arms like angel hair pasta. But honestly, these fights are probably what prompted my father's addiction to plastic surgery. The first time he did it, he was just trying to finish what God had left incomplete, using his words, not mine. And he used the yellow pages to find a doctor who had lost her medical license. In exchange for gas money and a plane ticket to the Philippines, she was willing to install experimental bionics and stolen military technology that my father had gotten from his friend Jonald to turn my father into a 20-foot tall, mobile war machine. Unfortunately, my father could not use this new form for long, because he was not allowed to get through any form of security checkpoint, whether it was an airport or a bar doorman, because he was being discriminated against for having surface-to-air missiles and 20mm rotary cannons which he would use at the slightest provocation. So, society forced my father to revert somewhat back to his former body, but he still refused to be enclosed in a covering as imperfect as human skin, so he decided to have another disavowed former cosmetic surgeon replace his skin with a blue car tarp. This satisfied my father for many years, but then he saw the Harry Potter movies and realized that he was actually a snake trapped inside of a man's body. So my father did what he had to do and found the best surgeon 10,000 pesos would buy in Tijuana, and asked him to fuse all his limbs together into one snake-like tube, which he could use to slither along the ground and look for mice. And 10 hours and 1 kidney later, my father was a man-snake. But it did not improve his mood at all. Other people still saw my father as some strange snake man, not a man-snake, with blue skin and a foul temper. We used to go out to eat every night in a restaurant or a diner because my father refused to cook because he thought that was woman's work. And while we were in the restaurant or diner, he would always ask the staff if they had Coke or Pepsi, and he would immediately demand the one they did not stock. For my father was always one to want that which he could not have. Sometimes we would have to wait upwards of 5 hours until we were served because we would have to wait until a server went to a grocery store to get my dad a soda. And then wait again because after he ordered food, he would demand a live mouse, which had to be bought from a PetSmart or like a local pet store. And like still, even to this day, Uber Eats refused to accommodate my father and get him live animals in a driver's car. Unfortunately, eating also took a very long time because my father only had one tooth of each type, and they were all bunched in the upper front area of his mouth. So we would typically spend around 8 hours in a restaurant each time we ate. And in my younger years, this would have immediately been followed by another move. My father was a very misunderstood man by others for these reasons. My father did for the longest time try and share his experiences and thoughts with others on the internet through a blog, but unfortunately he did not know how to use computers too good, and he accidentally kept on uploading his blog updates as Yelp reviews for small businesses. However, out of a morbid curiosity, some users did try and piece together what mansnake420 at hotmail.com was on about by looking through his post history, only to find what they described as the florid, incoherent ravings of a madman. And this just base rejection and misunderstanding of my father followed him from his, let's call it, non-ideal birth and early life until his untimely death, 30 seconds before the start of this video, when he strapped himself to a comically large Roman candle, which he most likely purchased from his friend Bartholomew in an attempt to reach the cosmos. Ultimately, I don't think human beings can be unbiased judges of character, so I will not attempt to judge the moral fiber of the man who raised me, but I will say that the world probably was made a better place because of his presence.